Let's welcome Father Dat and Sister Pauline.
Very good. Thank you so very much. It's so good to see you all. And I know that, how many of you are 8th grade? Raise your hand. Wow. So next year you'll be a freshman in high school, huh? Wow. And the rest are 7th grade, right? 6 and 6. Okay, 6. How many 6th grade? Let me see. And 7th grade? Wow. Okay. Now, how old is 6th grade? What is?
11, 12.
Really? Wow. Wow. That reminds me of a little bit. Today I want to share with all of you, okay, that each one of you, God is calling to something. Have you ever think about that? How many of you think God is calling you? Raise your hands. Okay, very good. Now, today I want to tell you that God is calling every one of you to something. Not necessarily to be a priest or sisters, but for every single person, God called you to something. Especially if you, how many of you are, especially if you are baptized, whenever you are baptized, you probably don't remember when your parents baptized you, do you? You probably was crying. Okay, when the priest poured water over you and he anointed you with the holy oil, at that time what God did was you were made prophet, priest, and king. Did you know that? Did you know that you, with your baptism, you were made a prophet, a priest, and a king, so that you can join Christ to build up God's kingdom. So God is calling each one of us to do something, to take part in that kingdom. Some God is calling to become, to serve as priests and as sisters. Some God is calling to be very holy husband and wife who loves each other very dearly and who become holy parents that love their children. Some God is calling to live just a single life, to dedicate to help other people. So God is calling each one of us to different things. I'm going to share with you today how I hear God's calling. You know, like if someone call you, hello, but if you're in a party so loud, it's hard to hear, right? So same, there's so much noise. God is calling us, but how do we hear it? I'll share with you how I heard God's voice in my life. Okay. Now, I come from a country, I was born in a country far, 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 far away in a place called Vietnam. How many of you ever heard of Vietnam before? Oh yeah, most of you heard it. It's on the other side of the earth. Okay. Now, when I was growing up, for my grandfather and my parents, we had to go to Mass every single day. Not just Sunday, but every single day we had to go to Mass. Now the thing is, in Vietnam, I grew up in the countryside. So a lot of people are farmers, so our day begin very, very early. Well, guess what time Mass might begin in the morning? 8 o'clock? 5? 5:30?
4.
At 4 in the morning. Can you believe that? 4 in the morning. So, and for us, we have to go every day unless we were, even if I was sick, I better get up and go to Mass. Unless I'm so sick I can't get out of bed, I can't walk, then I can stay home. So every day at 3:15, Grandpa or my dad would come in. Get up, boys! It's time for Mass. So we would have to get up, go brush our teeth, wash our face, get dressed, and go to church, and be in church by 4 in the morning. Whew. That's why now I'm not a morning person, because I'm making up for all those times I had to get up early in the morning, you know. So when we go to church, as soon as we got out of the house, Dad would start talking about the faith, because in Vietnam at that time it was communist and we couldn't go to class. So Dad would give us class as we walked to the church. And when we went to the church, we had to sit in the front. So when I remember when I was 6 years old, so I was a little bit smaller than I am right now. Huh? I was 6 years old. I used to sit in the front and I look at the priests wearing those vestments. Remember what color do they wear? What color do they wear? The priests wear usually white, green, what else? Red, purple. Yeah, I used to see them wearing those, and I remember sitting in the front. I thought, I want to wear one of those, and I couldn't wait to wear it. So I would go home. I would sneak into my parents' bedroom, and when I was 6 years old, like about that tall, I would take out my dad's sweatshirt. My dad at that time was a little bit taller than me now. He's still taller than me now. Take out his sweatshirt, and I'll put on myself, so it'd go all the way down to my ankle, and I play mass. See, and you know what I use? For the host, I use peanut butter waffle for the host, and for the wine, I use red Kool-Aid. So when my mom gave me school money, I would save those money, and I use it to buy peanut butter waffle and Kool-Aid, because that's how I got my parishioner to come. All my friends come to be part of the mass with me because they wanted to eat peanut butter waffle and drink red Kool-Aid. And I would play mass, I would preach to them. And when I was 7 years old, I received my first communion. Every time I go up, you go up and the priest said the body of Christ, and you say, Amen, right? Take it. I go back to my seat. I kneel down, and I would always pray. For the longest time, my prayer would be, Dear Lord, please hurry up and make me a priest. I couldn't wait. So now my house in Vietnam is like a long, skinny, long country, and there's a highway that will go from north to south, and my parents, we lived on that highway. So every time a priest or a sister go by that place, they need a place to stay, they always came to my parents' house to stay overnight. In fact, so many of them came that the religious and the priests, they call my parents' place a motel for religious. So they always come there, and we always have priests and sisters in the house. And when they come, they always talk about the life of the priest, how they would help the poor, how the priest would hear confession, celebrate mass, pray, and help the people. And I hear how the nuns would go out and they would help the very, very poor people in Vietnam and help the orphans. And I just couldn't wait to become a priest. So remember, every once in a while I would go to my dad and I would cry, Daddy, I want to go to the seminary. By the way, the seminary is not a cemetery, huh? I'm living now in the seminary. The cemetery is a scary place. That's where dead people live. What do you think is a seminary? Anybody know what a seminary might be? Yes.
Where people learn how to be priests.
Yes, very good. Yeah, it's where men, like if some of you one day wants to study to become priest, you go there, you study to become priest. So I said, Daddy, I want to go to the seminary. Finally, at the age of 10, my dad decided to take me to go see the bishop. Now in Vietnam, you don't see a bishop so often. So when you see the bishop, it's like, wow, it's like seeing God, amazing. So I remember, in Vietnam, we don't have car. Everybody either ride a bike or a moped, So we had a little moped. So Dad, we went to see the bishop. And, we waited outside. The bishop came out and went into his office. And we sat across the desk from the bishop. And Dad said, Bishop, I know this is a little bit strange, but my son here, he's young, only 10 years old. But he can't wait to become a priest. He keeps bugging me. He wants to come see you. Do you think you can, maybe allow him to go to the minor seminary maybe for young people? Or maybe what should we do so he can go to the seminary one day? Can he join? And I remember the bishop looked at us look at my dad and look at, me, and he said, no. I mean, I wanted to cry so bad, but I was so scared of the bishop, I wouldn't cry, And he said, the only way your son can become a priest is to leave Vietnam and go to the United States. Because of the communists, I wouldn't be able to go to the seminary at that time. So we left the office and we were so sad because what are we going to do? Our family were poor and the United States is on the other side of the earth. But from that day when we came back, our family every day we pray. We would pray. And my parents began to save every single penny they have so they can help me to come to the United States. And showing up when I was 12 years old, a 6th grader, right? 6th grader, 12 years old, or a 7th grader, when I was your age, I escaped Vietnam by boat. It was pretty scary, The boat was about from here to the wall, and it was about this wide, and they packed about 40 people in that place, and then we go on the ocean, and we had to sneak, at night. We would be going at night. During the day, we had to find an island, and we hide in the island so we don't get caught. At night, and we would go back to the boat and go. And on the way to Thailand, because that's where the refugee camp is, we get stopped by pirates. So they line us up, and they take all the money we had, and thank God they let us go. So when I came to Thailand, we didn't have any money. So every day, my brother went with me. My brother and I, we would go down to the house in Thailand and beg for food. Someday we're lucky, we have food. Someday we're not lucky, we go to sleep very hungry. But, so we were there for 2 months like that, and finally we were able to go to the camp. I was in the refugee camp for 2 years, and I came to the United States in 1990. Well, when I came here, I couldn't wait, because all this time I left so I can go to the seminary. So when I came here, I wanted to finish high school very quickly so I can go to the seminary. The problem is when I came, I didn't speak any English, So I would go to high school and people would ask me questions in English and I have no idea what they were asking. And you know how I survived? I would look at their face. So if they ask me a question in English and they look mean, I'll say no. And if they ask me a question and I have no idea what they were saying, but they look like a nice person, I say yes. So they ask me, are you related to Bruce Lee? Yes. I have no idea what they were asking, And school was hard because I didn't know English, So I remember I was assigned to read. In high school, you have to read Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare. And I was assigned to read 13 pages. I went home. It took me 3 hours to read just one page because I had to look up every single word, And I was so scared. I thought, what am I going to do? Because I didn't speak any English. And but I really want to become a priest, so I kept trying. Now, when I was in high school, in Vietnam, I learned to play the violin, so I joined the symphony. And there, in my sophomore year, while I was still trying to struggle to learn English, in the symphony, I met this really nice, very kind and nice Chinese girl. I like her a lot because when she asked me a question in English, or when I talk and I misunderstood or I don't understand something, she would pretend like she understood me and later explain to me. So before I knew it, I had a huge crush on her, And I learned English really fast so I can speak to this girl, And I, when I had this huge crush on this girl, I was like, oh, I don't know about being a priest, you know. And in fact, so I tried to learn English really fast. And at one time, we get a chance to go out, you know. I kind of invited her to go out. And we went out. And you know what we did when we went out together? We went to see a movie. And guess what movie we saw?
King Kong.
No, we saw the movie The Lion King. You remember that movie? Yeah, that was kind of like my date movie, you know. We saw The Lion King. I remember that song from that movie. Can you see the love tonight? Oh, I was like, oh, forget about being a priest, you know. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to finish high school. I'm going to go and study to become a doctor. You know, I'm going to study pre-med and maybe become a doctor. And later on, she'll come and study to become a doctor, and we'll get married, we'll have a house, we have a nice car, and we have a family and a little puppy. So I had it all planned out. Now, at the end of my senior year, I joined a youth group in the church, and a seminarian came to kind of help. He invited us to go to his ordination because he became a priest, you know, sometime in my senior year. So he invited us. So I came to his ordination. On the day of his ordination, you know, he came up and he knelt down, and the bishop laid hands to pray and make him a priest. After the prayer of consecration, he stood up, and his parents brought from the back of the church the vestment. They put it over him. Two priests came up, put it over him, gave him a big hug, and they go down. And he turned around, and everybody was clapping. And I looked at him and remember he looked so radiating, so happy, and tears coming out of his eyes, and I was so touched. And I thought, oh my God, how about all these times I wanted to become a priest? I wanted to wear those vestments. So I really struggled a lot after that. I came home and I pray. Lord, what am I supposed to do? And I went to see my priest and to talk to my uncle, who is also a priest. So they told me, why don't you check out the seminary? You know, you've got to try, because if you don't try, you might go on and get married, and later, you know, if you're happy in your marriage, it's okay, but later, let's say if you didn't turn out, you might say, maybe I should have become a priest, you know. But if you give it a try, you never regret. You leave the seminary, you learn a lot there, you'll be you have more, your faith is stronger, make you a better daddy, a better husband to your wife. I said, sure. So I decided to join the seminary. And now, my first time there, first semester there, it was so hard because I had to go to seminary and learn philosophy. I remember the first time I was in the seminary, we had to write a philosophy paper. Well, because I wanted to, you know, give it a try, so I worked really hard. I turned my paper in. A week later, the professor returned the paper. When the professor gave me my paper, I was excited because I spent a lot of time working on it. I looked at it, and it was like a bleeding paper. It was red mark everywhere. And I think I got a D or a C minus in that paper, and I was so sad, you know. I went home. I went to the chapel, the Blessed Sacrament. I put the paper down, and I looked up and I prayed. I said, my God, why have you abandoned me? You know, it was so bad. And then I was homesick, you know. I missed the girl that I was, you know, that I had a crush on, you know, and all of that. So I thought, in the end, well, maybe I'm not going to become a priest. So I called my mom. I said, Mom, at the end of the semester, I'm going to go back to the school, not the seminary. So a month before the semester end, one day I drove to a flea market to buy the picture of Mary and Jesus. And on the way back, I was driving on the freeway, Loop 12, 65 miles per hour. And as I was driving, I saw a truck carrying sofas and chairs and all of that without the rope around it, without tying it with a string. So I thought, that thing's going to drop. So here I am driving 65. I changed lane. It was a 4-way freeway. I changed lane, 4 lane over. That way if it dropped, it won't drop in front of me. Well, we happened to go up the bridge, and sure enough, that chair fell off the truck, just like I predicted. But because we were going up the bridge and the wind was blowing so hard, all of a sudden it fell right in front of my car. So here I am, driving 65 miles per hour, and all of a sudden, a chair in front of me. So I tried to avoid it, like that, but because it was so fast, my car spun 5 times. So here I am driving this, I try to avoid it, it spun 5 times on the freeway. From that lane, all the way to this lane, and guess what? It turned backward like that, at the end. And of all the things that could come, an 18-wheeler truck. So here I am, backward on the freeway, and an 18-wheeler truck came. And I thought, when the truck was about from right here to where I am, I thought to myself, oh my God, am I going to heaven or hell? It was so scary. And then this is so real. As I'm telling you, this is so real. It's like I saw like a shadow of Jesus on the passenger side, reach over and held me. And then bam, that 18-wheeler hit me face to face. It hit it so hard. You know how the car has a battery in the front? It hit it so hard the battery flew out, hit the windshield, splashed it, flew to the back. That 18-wheeler pushed my car about half a mile. You know how it stopped? Against the bridge. You know how the bridge has the wall? So I was between the bridge, the wall, and the 18-wheeler. The police came, the fire truck came, the ambulance came, they pulled me out of the car. They asked me, do you know what's your name? Do you know where you are? Not a single scratch. So they put me in the police car. They brought me back to the seminary. I went to the chapel. I knelt down. I said, God, I didn't know you are so real. You just saved my life. I'm going to give you another semester in the seminary. So that's what I did. I decided to stay for another semester. But you know, my life changed around after that because I began to really feel God is so real in my life. And, friends, 4.5 years ago, I came up. Bishop laid his hands on me and ordained me a priest. Now I've been a priest for 4.5 years. And let me tell you, I look back to all the things that I had to go through, from escaping by boat and get stopped by pirates, get hit by an 18-wheelers. If I had to go over all of that, all over again, 1,000,000 times, I would. I would. Because the gift of the priesthood is amazing. You know, how God called us to be Christ to others, to serve others. So I want to share that story with you today because God is calling each one of you too. Some to build a family, some to become a priest or a sister. It's an amazing call. Be open to that, you know, if you ever felt like God might be calling you, pray, you know. What I really want y'all to do is, I invite you all to pray every day. Yeah? Pray every day and ask God to really lead you to do what God wants you to do, not what you want to do. Remember when I was in high school? I always thought, I already make a plan. I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to have a family, I'm going to build a house, I'm going to have a nice car and have a puppy. I planned it all out, right? But thank God I ended up doing what God really wanted me to do, not what I wanted to do. You know why? Because when we do what God wants us to do, that's when we're the happiest. Because there's a lot of people who have money, have fame, popularity, but they're not happy. But when you do what God wants you to do, you're very happy. And you allow God to build up His kingdom. So I want to share that with you, and I pray for you all, and I hope that you'll get a chance to also find out what God wants you to do so you can serve God. Okay? Very good. Thank you. You know, I'm going to have to run in a few minutes, so I'm going to take some quick questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sister Pauline. Does anybody have any question? Yes?
What happened to the Chinese girl?
Oh, yeah, you know, I told her that I have to go check it out, and it was tough, but she moved on. She studied to become a doctor. She helped out with the Red Cross, and we kept in contact for a while, and then we both got busy, and we kind of lost contact. But the last time I heard that she was getting ready to be engaged with someone, so I think she's very happy now. So, very good. Yes.
So what happened to your parents in Vietnam? Are they still over there? Or did they
Oh yeah, thank God. They came a few years later. They were able to come to the United States, all the rest of them. So they're all in Houston now. So I'm very happy to be able to do that. So I come to their house every once in a while and have dinner with my family. And by the way, I also have a brother now who is studying in the seminary. So he's been studying, he's in his 4th year philosophy. So very good. Anything else? Well, thank you all very much for your attention. Yes?
Do you have that puppy you wanted?
Oh, you know what? Right now I'm living in the seminary, and we're not allowed to have a puppy. So I don't have the puppy yet. But maybe one day, when I have my own parish, maybe I'll have a little puppy. Yeah. Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you all very much. I'm going to turn it now over to Sister Pauline. Okay.
She has your bags for you. Is this on? Can you hear me? I'm delighted to be here with you today and to talk to you a little bit. You know, we're just telling our stories a little bit because we know you're at that age when you're trying to figure out your own story. And, you know, I'm kind of the opposite of Father Dat, who was born halfway across the earth. I was born in downtown Houston, not far away at all. But, you know, there's a story in the gospel where Jesus, do you remember when he was 12 years old and he went with his parents to the temple? Remember that story? And he got lost on purpose because he wanted to stay in the temple and preach and talk to the philosophers and the teachers. You see, he was kind of on the right track as far as what his mission in life was, but he was 12 years old, so his mother told him when she found him, because she was so frightened, she said, you have to go back home with us now. So you can see how he knew his mission was to be talking about the Lord and to be in the temple and to talk about the holy things, but he was a little bit too young, so he had to go back home for a little while and kind of mature and grow in wisdom. And so that's kind of where you are in your own life. And I'll tell you a funny story about myself. I'm almost embarrassed to tell this story, but when I was in the 8th grade, like some of you girls, we were given a task to write a paper on what we wanted our career in life to be. And we had to do research on it and that kind of thing. Well, you'll never guess what I wrote my paper on. I wanted to be a fashion model. And my poor mother, I made her take me down. There was in Houston here, there's probably more than one. I made her take me to this fashion modeling school to do my research. And so that's what I did my paper on. And my mother kept saying, are you sure this is what you were going to do? I'm kind of like Jesus in the temple. I just wasn't quite on the mark. But I just love the fashion world and the beauty world and all of that kind of thing. And so that's kind of where I was. Of course, I never grew tall enough to do anything like that. So I went off to college. I went to LSU in Baton Rouge. Do you know that school? Any LSU fans?
Oh, yeah.
Is anybody from Baton Rouge? No? How do you're from New Orleans? How do you know LSU? Your mom went there. Yeah, I went there because somebody told me how much fun it was. That's basically why I went there. That was not really good discernment. We want you to we want you to pray and reflect a little more on your choices in life. But anyway, I went there, and actually I was in the School of Home Economics. And guess what? I was in fashion merchandising. Fashion merchandising for a while there. I did graduate in home economics, but I later switched to family life and environment. But you know what? I was also a member of a sorority there. Do you know what a sorority is? I don't even know if they do that much anymore.
Isn't it like an exclusive group? I mean, there's like two, right?
There was a whole...
Sororities for girls, it's like a group, like an exclusive group.
Yeah, my group wasn't quite that exclusive. Some of them were more exclusive than others. But anyway, I joined a sorority, and you know, there's an initiation when you become a full member. And it's kind of a special ceremony, and it's always secret. But I'll tell you two little secrets from that ceremony. This is what I remember. They wake us up in the middle of the night, and there was candles, and there was a lot of different parts to the ceremony, but there was one part where they would give these readings. And like you're in the middle of the night, so these readings kind of stay with you. One of them actually was from St. Paul. It must have been kind of a spiritual group. And you know, there's a famous passage, and I can't tell you now where it's from. It says, whatever things are good or true or wise or holy. Do you know that?
I think it's from the letter to the Philippians.
There you go. It says, think on these things. They were kind of preparing you to be a thoughtful, reflective person. There was one other reading there that stuck with me forever, and I can tell you what that was. And this is kind of true for young ladies today, I think, because we're always into beauty. It said this: there is no beautifier of complexion or form or behavior like the wish to scatter joy and not pain around us. It's kind of a long sentence, so I'll say it once again. There is no beauty of beautifier of complexion or form or behavior like the wish to scatter joy and not pain around us. So at that point I knew my beauty was somewhere else. It wasn't in the fashion world. And so that's what and you know what, I saw this up here. It says, whatever you did to the least, you did for me. That's what Jesus said to us. And you know what, this is where real beauty is. And this is what religious communities try to do, is to follow Jesus who cares for the least. So much later, after my graduation and after having worked in downtown Houston for about 10 years, I joined my religious community, the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word. And our main mission was caring for the sick in hospitals. But all of the religious communities, no matter what they do, they try to follow some aspect of the things that Jesus did when he was alive. What kind of things did Jesus do? What kind of actions, activities did he do? Can you think of any? He healed people. Anything else? He taught people. He stood on the mountain and gave them the Beatitudes. He just stood with those who were outcasts, like the lepers. He was kind to those who needed kindness. Yes?
He did miracles.
He did miracles. What kind of miracles did he do?
Like if someone's dead,
He raised the dead. Now, so far, Jesus is the only one who's been able to raise anybody from the dead. But you know what? We can bring people to life in their spirits. And you know, I think that's what the priest does when in confession, or when he talks to them who have been away from the church last night. What I'm going to say is last night the cardinal was with us and was telling a couple of stories about how he, like on an airplane, talked to someone whose life was a mess, they said. In those ways, you bring people back to life through your actions through the church and in being connected with Jesus. So, you know, there have been some very famous members of religious communities. You probably know Mother Teresa, who was with the poorest of the poor, those real outcasts in the city of Calcutta. There was St. Francis of Assisi, who started the Franciscans. Do you have some favorite saints of your own? Who's your favorite?
I like Jacinta.
Jacinta. Tell us who she was.
She was she was the youngest of the 3 Fatima children.
That's right. Do you remember the 3 children who Mary appeared to at Fatima? These are some special people that we know in our lives. Do you have a favorite? Saint Faustina, a more contemporary, modern saint. You know who's very popular? Do you have a favorite?
St. Thomas More.
St. Thomas More, who was a lawyer and a married man who followed his conscience to what he thought was right. So you see, there are examples of saints in all walks of life. Another very popular saint is St. Teresa the Little Flower. She must be one of the most famous people in the world. But you know, it just goes to show you how the Lord can do unusual things in our lives, because she was actually tucked away in a cloistered convent in France, who kind of dreamed of doing big and famous things. She wanted to be a missionary. She wanted to be a martyr. And now she's the patron saint of the missions. But she lived a very quiet life, and she decided that her mission in life was just going to do everything she could do, all the small things in her life, with a lot of love. That was simply it. She did a lot of writings, and now she's a doctor of the church, and like I said, one of the most famous women in the world. And long after Britney Spears is forgotten, Saint Teresa will be remembered forever, because she did little things with great love. I want to give you a moment to, I'm going to introduce my friends to you here in just a moment. But before I do that, do you have any questions that you would like to ask me? You know what, I live on a very a big campus. I live in a mother house, and it just so happened, well, we live on 50 acres. The architect for our building was the very same as for the seminary, and so it's a very beautiful place. I have to say, we do have animals on our property. Father Dad is not able to have a puppy, but even though none of us like personally own an animal, we do have a really cute little schnauzer named Angel, and she's with the retired sisters most of the time. But she's so happy and she has such a great life that someone who was visiting us said, when I die, I want to become a convent dog, because she has a great happy life and she's loved by a lot of people. We had a dog before Angel named Josie, who was a Labrador. Josie lived a long life at our convent and is now buried with a really nice little headstone with her name and picture on the headstone. We've got some cats that are kind of around too. Did you have a question?
Like, you know how like people guys want to become priests go to seminaries? Where do women want to become ones?
Where do women go? That's a good question. What you do is you would first kind of investigate, or kind of, you know, part of discernment is, like I did for my fashion modeling, you do a certain amount of research. And you know, all of you have special gifts and talents, and some religious communities who are teachers or might benefit from your expertise more than the hospital sisters or that kind of thing. So once you discover which particular spiritual family you would be attracted to, Then you join that religious community. There are different stages of formation before you make your final vows. But you would go to live with the religious community. In my own case, I got another degree. After my degree at LSU, I went to St. Louis University in St. Louis and got a master's degree in healthcare administration. Education is always important. So there will be further education for just about everybody after you join the priesthood or religious life. But you live at first in what we call a formation community with other young women who are becoming sisters, and there are professed sisters who live with them and work with them in that kind of way. So you're living in one of the houses of your religious community. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
How long have you been a...
That's a good question. Do I look very old? Or, well, this year it will be 24 years ago that I entered.
Wow.
24 years ago, and from the time that I began till I made final vows was about 9 years. I know for young people that sounds like a long time.
How many total nuns do we have now in our archdiocese?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. If I took a wild guess, I might say between 700 to 900. But a good many of those are retired. And it's kind of, whenever we have sisters meetings of all the sisters, I'm always amazed at the number of communities that are here. And there are growing numbers because there are new ones coming from Nigeria and other parts of the world, from Mexico, Vietnam. So there are a variety of religious communities here. Some of them have their mother houses here, so they have larger numbers. Some of them, their mother house is somewhere else, and they have 3 or 4 sisters working in the diocese. So there's a bigger number than you know, but you don't always see them. Yeah, that's a good question. And there are all kinds of varieties of sisters, some who work in parishes, some who do health care, nursing. In my own order, we have 3 sisters who are doctors. We have 1 psychologist. There's a lot of variety in religious life, and your own gifts and skills are important, you know, because you bring those to your religious family and you offer them to the Lord to use at the service of Jesus Christ. I bet some of you are good at math. Who's good at math? Some are terrible at math. Some are good at history and English. Who's good in those things? And some who can't. Who can sing? We don't have a lot of singers in here. Play musical instruments?
I can sing.
Yeah. So see, there's a variety of gifts.
I can sing.
Oh, he plays soccer. We got, how many soccer fans do we have? Yeah. So you see, there's all kinds of gifts. It's important for you to know your gifts when you're making your choices in life. Because you know what? The Lord gave you those gifts for a special reason. And so you want to use them and build on them. And so that's why there's a variety of gifts, but as St. Paul says, what? There's one body or one spirit. And each part of the body is important. And the ear can't say to the hand, I don't need you. So everybody's important. So we just want to encourage you to think about your gifts, know yourself, know a lot about yourself, because that's how you learn your mission in life. I want to spend a moment introducing my friends here. This is this bear came from our vocation office, and we haven't had him this week because he's been here at St. Martha's. He has this little place where he sits in our office, and we're kind of attached to him. But anyway, this bear reminds us to pray for vocations. And you know, prayer is always the beginning of everything. So he's reminding us of that. And we're glad to have him around. The bishops just love this bear, and we carry him around, and he's become very popular. Guess what? 2 weeks ago, I took this bear to visit the cloistered sisters in New Caney. Do you know what cloistered sisters are? Yes.
You stay in the convent, and usually when people visit, like, you can't go in and visit them. You just look at them. You can't really talk.
Yeah, there's a grail, what we call a grail. It's not a huge thing, but it just reminds us that they are separated from the world, and their mission in life is to pray. They're praying for all of us. And you see, you wouldn't see them in a classroom like this. I'm an active sister, and they're cloistered sisters. But our bear friend went to visit the cloistered sisters, and he had his picture made behind the grail with the sisters, and they were very happy to see him because they had heard about him because he's kind of gotten famous. So we took his picture with the cloistered sisters, and so he's reminding everybody to pray for vocations. This bear belongs to St. Martha's. This bear's going to stay here, but he reminds you, I just think his little pants are so cute. He's going to remind you to pray for vocations here at St. Martha's. But you know, everybody needs a name, and these bears have not been named yet. And so that'll be your job. We're having a contest across the Archdiocese to come up with names. To tell you the truth, we've had a few names turned into us, but we weren't crazy about them. You know how when you see a little friend like this and you come up with a name and you say, that's his name. We hadn't found that name yet. Now, all of you will be given an opportunity to come up with a name. The name for the two bears can be the same, and your teachers are going to give you slips of paper to write your suggestions on, and they're going to go in this little yellow box. So y'all can start by putting your thinking caps on. You don't have to do it right now, but we're going to ask you to try to come up with names for these little bears to help us to pray for vocations and to pray for your own vocations, because everything starts with prayer. Do you have any final questions before I leave?
Is the bear a girl or a boy?
Well, that's a good question. Is the bear a girl or a boy?
We don't know yet. I guess the name will determine it, huh?
Well, keep in mind that this bear is kind of dressed like a priest.
That's a boy.
So
That one's a boy. Yeah.
I have to share this little story with you. The man who gave me this bear from the bear company, he's going to be working on a little nun bear. So maybe later on we'll have a little sister bear. I got this, he gave them to me at a special occasion for free, so here we are. Well, we might get some more big bears, you never know. So are y'all set with your mission as far as naming the bear? Okay, so before I leave, is there any final question? Final question. And Father Dat and I we're going to be continually praying for each of you. Do you know that there's a young man from your parish who just entered our seminary? Do you know his name? David Angelino. He just started school at the very same seminary where Father Dat was, where he had the car accident in Irving, Texas, close to Dallas. So David started there January the 15th. So continue to remember David in your prayers as you're praying for vocations. And I know TJ is very famous here too.
Yeah.
You know, TJ is going to be ordained in May. May next year.
Oh, okay.
He's going to be ordained a deacon. We just found out in May at the new cathedral this year. He'll be a deacon. So that'll be very exciting. So y'all will have to come to all those celebrations. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up now, and I really thank you for your time and attention.